Something the experts tell us is that it's important to ask students lots of questions and get feedback from them about what it is that they do and what they don't understand. A lot of times when we're giving a lecture class, it's very tempting to turn around and ask, does everyone get it? And you look for the two or three heads that are nodding in assent and say, well, that's comforting. I'm ready to move on. Or you ask one or two students for the answer and wait for the one that can raise their hand and they give it to us, and then we feel good that message has been received. But it's very difficult to know as a class how well the students are doing and are they as a whole understanding what it is that we've posed to them. You've probably seen variations of something called an iClicker or a classroom response system. I use these a lot in classes now, and even for upper division classes where the level of problem solving that's required is much more elaborate than a simple multiple choice. Even using these iClickers, which allow for multiple choice answers, is very helpful because just these kind of conceptual questions with 5-choice multiple choices are enough to reveal when it is that we can move on and when it is that we have to take a pause and actually talk some more about a particular concept. So I've found these to be really effective for me gathering data right there on the spot. I now give pretty frequent quizzes in my classes, and even if it's not a quiz and it's just a clicker question for me to understand where the students are at, I try to work in more than one of these per day. So these are always multiple choice because that's what most clickers are able to do. And when a student clicks in their answer, if they use the Quest-based software that's available for iClickers, the students can see when their answer has been registered because they have a certain unique ID in Quest, and that lights up, or that ID box lights up green when the response is given. And the timer that runs in the software can be set to several minutes or 1 minute or 30 seconds, however you like to program it. And then at the end of that time, you, the instructor, get a histogram of what it is the students found out. And so in this case, I found out the students more than understood this particular concept, and I was ready to move on because they all already got the answer. In other cases, I've given quizzes where the answers are all over the place. That's actually useful too, because then I can say, well, if the answers are distributed across all 5 multiple choices, I tell the students, I would like you now to go turn to your neighbor, and with only 20% likelihood that you're talking to somebody who's answered the same thing as you. I'd like you to convince each other that who's right, whether your answer is right or your neighbor's answer is right, and try to understand the problem a little bit better. If I then repose the clicker question, I can measure what's happened, and sure enough, often the distribution turns out looking the second time through, much like this one, where everyone got the right answer. A clicker response system like this is really a good way. It's not the only way, but it's a good way to measure progress in the class and know when it's time to proceed with the discussion. There are other classrooms that have been outfitted with more elaborate feedback systems. Again, opportunities for formative assessment, assessment that doesn't necessarily count for high stakes, but can be used by the youth instructor to get some feedback on how your students are doing. We created a couple classrooms in the RLM building where there are projectors all the way around the perimeter of the room, and the students are working at tables in groups. And their tables actually have little iPads that they can sketch on, and the instructor has a console that can feed the video from all those iPads up to the screens. In fact, it can feed different iPads up to different screens around the room. And so as the students are making sketches on these iPads, discussing as a group what it is that they think is the correct answer, the instructor can see that and then decide, well, this set of students has an interesting answer, or that set of students has another interesting alternative answer. And then the students can be put in a position of looking at several of these answers up on the classroom screens and discussing amongst themselves as a class which is the more reasonable answer to a situation. Any of these kinds of solutions go into the broad category of formative assessment, which means low stakes opportunities for the youth instructor to get a sense of how things are going in the class and a sense of when it is that you're ready to proceed or when it is that you have to pause and reset and help the class fix something that they've actually poorly misunderstood.